what is pride other than an expectation that one had for oneself? And okay, expectations, they can be, you could say, good or bad, but they're really neither. And in many cases, they're delusional. But if you have a personal attachment to a delusional expectation, such as what you would or would not achieve or what you would or would not accept, then you can see how that could be a vector for unnecessary suffering. And it really is the combination of delusionality and want, which is desire. And it's usually for some kind of a realization, such as the feeling that one is wealthy, but one might not be wealthy enough according to one's expectation, and then we're already back in that unnecessary suffering matrix. Or the expectation that one would have accomplished something more than one did, but again, we're seeing how that can be delusional, and in fact oftentimes is, and it's unavoidably so. Here's another encouraging idea, is that people get themselves into all kind of trouble in all kinds of ways, but they can get themselves out of it too. Never forget that. That part is crucial. That little tidbit of information, it penetrates ignorance, and ignorance is the chief hindrance to practice. How are you going to play a trumpet right without notes? How are you going to play that song? How are you going to lift that sound to the heavens without notes? That's the difference between ignorance and practice. And practice requires that knowledge that you now just know. You can get yourself, yes, we all get ourselves into our own particular troubles, which are karmic. Many of it has to do with previous lives. Like a lot of people that threw you guys for a loop, threw you some screwballs, well, you might have seen them before. And maybe it wasn't a screwball that they threw you. They just disillusioned you of some things that you needed to be disillusioned of in order to advance to further levels. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about using experience to enrich your life and to liberate you from all of those illusions that are so flashy at times. The lights, the glitz, the glamour, show business. Come on, people. We're talking about the Prince of Illusion. How devilish can he be? You think you know one thing, and the next minute you forgot. This dimension is not heaven, friends. Who here can attest that it is, with old age, sickness, and death out there? Just the other day, a good friend from a long time ago dropped dead just like that. Here today, gone tomorrow. That's the truth. It's just you don't know it yet. But this here is going to prepare you for that. And if you have it behind you, be thankful for that. And if you have it before you, don't worry about that. Because if it's before you, it's in that future that does not exist. And if it's behind you, it's in that past that does not exist. When it comes up, you revert your mind to the breath. That's what you do. Something from the past. Oh, it's something from the past. I'm going to switch to the breath real quick because I'm living right here, right now. And it's good because it is free of the future and the past. It's just right here. It's so simple, and yet our mind wanders. Here, there, everywhere, don't it? Unless you give it guidance. Yes, mind control. That's what we're talking about. Oh, I want to have a bite of this, but I'm overweight. No, I'm going to stop myself from doing that. Oh, I'm going to have a drink right here, even though I know I should. No, I'm going to stop that right now. I'm going to let that thought go, and I'm not going to act on it. It's that simple. It's not me, it's not mine. It's not you, it's not yours. It's just right here, right now with the breath. And that's perfectly fine. That's the best it can be. It's that simple. We just have to get there, get to that resting spot by centering our mind again and again and again. Something comes out of outer space. I like to call it space dukkha. Like Dookie, it really is like that. From 1 minute to the next, just like that. And yet, just as quick, you can get yourself back to centeredness. If you're in that practice, you're like an acrobat that can fly through the air with other muscles that the other people don't have because they don't have that training, they don't have that practice. And so they don't make it. When that high horse comes, they get stuck in the middle, just and stumble and fall. And that hurts. They are breaking their bones out there. They're breaking their heads. They're breaking their hearts. They're breaking their butts. They're break dancing. And not in a good way. They're dodging bullets like this, like that, to the left, to the right, to down, up. That's why people watch boxing, don't they? It's a metaphor for their lives, for their thoughts. They can come at them from any angle, no rules, no appointments, direct delivery, whether you want it or not. Most people don't want it. But that's what it delivers. So they say, okay, well, it's delivered, so I gotta take it. No, they don't. You ever do that? See, this is the comedy routine. Come bringing it back to comedy, because this life is funny and good at times if you can gain that perspective. You open the door, just imagine there's a pizza guy there with a pizza. You order this, and you just say no, and you close that door, and you walk away. Now, some people might say that's cold, pizza's good, shouldn't have done that. Well, imagine it's a summons, and you do the same thing, but it really isn't you or yours. It's that thought that you don't need. And you can do that in your mind. Oh, yes, you can. You're not in court anymore. But you're thinking about the court. Well, then you're back in court, and you're losing time. You're in the prison of the mind. You need to let yourself out and let it go. Let it fade away. It's not going to go all at once, but these things do happen by increments. Every day it gets less because you cultivate detachment, severance, distance. Even forgetting, like, oh, what was I thinking again? Probably something like that. I don't need to revisit it. I got loose. I'm not going back. It's not getting back in. I'm not thinking about that. I don't need to. Nobody's forcing me. There's no gun to my head. So, of all of the infinite things to think and to contemplate and to be so thankful for, like this here breath, so wonderful to be a human being that has so many options if one were just to realize it and act upon it and say, look, I am choosing the good life now. And I never will be different, but I know things can happen. But I'm not going to let myself go that way every time. In fact, right now that practice is so good, it's automatic that you don't go the wrong way with the wrong thoughts and mess yourself up about some type of comparison that was illusory to begin with. I didn't win the lottery. I'm going to get down about that. That's ridiculous. But if people really did think they were going to win the lottery, or like 100%, then you can see how somebody might take it poorly that they didn't win. But perhaps their expectation was unrealistic. You see how you can start ungluing these thoughts to glue themselves to you in some way? No, you have to see it this way. You did not win the lottery. Everything is wrong now. You're in a wrong parallel universe that you did not choose. You did not cast yourself in the role. Well, where was the expectation that you were going to cast yourself in the role of life that is so fraught with changing forms and conditions, and it happens to everyone? No exceptions. None. The people that have money, they got other problems. There's more people with money that are crazy than crazy people that don't have money. Although not having money or running after money can drive one crazy. Both sides of the coin. That middle path, though, that's where success is found. Not too much, not too little. Is that too hard? You have enough to eat, have a place to sleep. Even if it's under a tarp, you're not freezing to death or in the desert. Perhaps you can relax a second or two and say, well, at least I'm alive. And I don't have to think about bad things. I can think about good things. Like at the free library, I can go and I can pick the book I want to read and I can read that. I can read those thoughts that might be somewhere in the far stacks, but I can go out and search it and find it, even if nothing else is on the shelves. But some kind of typical nonsense. That day-to-day, common, vulgar, normal kind of repertoire that can get us in that way of thinking that really does ruin our lives, no matter how they are. And if you think it can't happen when you're older, think how it happened to you as a teenager or as a child. I wanted this for Christmas, I got that instead. That's just a little taste of what can happen later, but with different issues that just scale up. But of course, those issues could be anything. You know, being a world-class artist of international fame and renown, nothing's good enough once you reach a certain level. It doesn't matter what other people say you've attained. They say, oh, you're the greatest. You're a legend. Stop. You're the best I've ever heard. You're a phenomenon, a force of nature. You're an undying kind of brilliant mix of a poet, comic, intellectual, and then a ladies' man too, or something like that, right? That's not what they say, but you might be that. to a certain extent, although what's being a ladies' man? They know what's good, right? There's people that do know how to value gold just because. And yet they're willing to destroy a whole forest to get it. Was it worth it? Well, for the environment and the people who dug it out of the ground, it wasn't. But maybe to some other people that prize things that don't rust and has that sunshiny, reflective, mirror-like power to it that attracts people when they want to find something of material value, because it doesn't lose its luster. And so people want to hold on to that as a substitute for spiritual value that is illusory. It's not always there, but that gold bar, that doesn't go away unless somebody takes it. But the reverse is also true. If you have spiritual wealth, they could take that gold bar, but you're still okay. Didn't belong to you anyway, did it? Were you there when the earth was created and for some reason your name was supposed to be on it? But why did you have that attachment though? That was your thinking. But that's not real. That turned out to be delusion. But what is delusion if not one of the three realms? So if you're not within delusion, then you're not one in the three realms. So are you in a better place by definition? Oh, look at that. But what would keep you from realizing that? Well, that would be attachment to a delusion, would it not? But you let that go and you're free. So you let go with the one hand, you just didn't let go with the other. That's that attachment. She left me. That's what he said. That's what he thinks. No. She was never there to begin with. It was just your attachment. It seemed so nice when everything was working the way you wanted. The only reason you're suffering is because it turned out not to be that thing. But why should it have been that thing? What were the chances of it being that thing? Perhaps that thing was too much. A construction worker might show up, but he can't build a bridge for you alone. That's asking too much. Especially a lot of you out there, you have tunnels, holes of existential questions that cannot be filled with that. Just cannot. Don't put the onus on others and then blame them for not delivering something that they couldn't have delivered. They can be a friend, yes. But many of them can't. And time will tell. And circumstances and changing forms and conditions. But the rule that having expectations and that they often lead to disappointment and attachment, that stays the same. It's just the variables that change. So if you can see that, and you can work with that, and you can have compassion with that, you can begin to adapt to the true circumstances of one's own psychological, spiritual landscape, and start cultivating from that point forward. And yet, we don't have to look into a distant future, because we don't look into the distant future. We have it right here, right now. I've been thinking about views and opinions and assumptions essentially any kind of perfectionist relationship that we can create psychologically, that we then invest or inject a sense of self into, which solidifies the opinion or view as a part of the self. This is a part of me. Right? I like Coca-Cola, but I don't like Sprite. I thought you knew that. And now there's only Sprite. So because I'm that type of person, I'm not happy. There's all different types of people with all different types of views like that. And we think of them as preferences, but essentially they're expressions of self, a self, and it's arbitrary. Really, if you just crawled out of the jungle and somebody offers you an ice cold Sprite, you're probably not going to make a big deal about it. In fact, it's going to taste like the nectar of the gods, or close to it, because your perspective has changed based on realities such as thirst. And you're thirsty because of the conditions, changing forms and conditions. And so you can forget the self. But when we get comfortable, then the self is in control. The self dictates whether or not we perceive something to be good enough or not. It could very well be good enough. That you're breathing right now, that you're alive, that most likely many of you aren't in excruciating pain, psychologically, physically, or otherwise. That's reason to celebrate. That's reason to have gratitude. That's a very good reason in this realm of old age, sickness, and death. It's a very good reason, at least to have no view. I think the most self-obsessed kind of persona can agree with that. No view is better than a view that's causing you suffering. And we often have views on people, places, and things that cause us agita. And yet that is the definition of unskillfulness. It isn't. If your persona has shuffled these cards into your deck, you need to shuffle them out. And how you shuffle them out is by being aware of suffering that they cause and not considering it to be acceptable or inevitable or unchangeable. The only thing that keeps you from changing a view or an opinion or an assumption or a belief is self. Oh, I couldn't change my opinion on this because otherwise I wouldn't be me. And I'm known as being a stubborn person. Someone that when they smash their head through one wall, they run into the next one and they just keep going like that through life because they're such a tough, spelled T-U-F-F, tough person. Tough hammer. Take out hammer. Everything looked okay. Now you just start smashing the walls with it because you're such a tough person. But that's not skillful. You do not even need to carry a hammer with you if you don't need it to do reasonable work. And if you don't have reasonable work, you don't need to have a hammer with you. And you don't need to just be hitting things with it because you have some type of compulsion to do it. Oh, that's ridiculous, teacher. I never do that. But with your thoughts, you do. Your views and opinions and assumptions, and thinking about the future and thinking about the past. You do it all the time. You probably were just doing it one moment ago until you stopped doing it. You were aware of the phenomenon. You caught yourself. And you stop yourself, maybe just for the first time. Maybe for the first time in a long time. And yet you would think, by dropping a wrong view, by doing the right thing, that you would get immediate gratification from that. But that's not how this works. That's why it's counterintuitive. No, it feels like you're attacking yourself. You're ripping yourself apart. You're blaming yourself, because some people will go into the blaming part. Why do you think that way? Stop thinking that way. Right? That's not the way to approach the self. That there's a whole series of self-defenses. People are put into existential crisis by things like this. Especially when they've been immersed in memory wars where they were taught and trained to see the entire world and universe through a wrong lens. Starting as very young children and being surrounded by people that had that same process done on them. Their leaders were good, their society was good, their morals were good, and those people that were, enemies of the state, that their infallible leaders said were that were put into work camps, and some of them never came back. That was all done for the betterment and advancement of their society. That's what they were told. And you see, it's so easier to believe a fairy tale like that, isn't it? Because it's congruent. Well, the people who have taught me that, they're right. The people who did that, they're right. And the person that was persecuted was wrong. That's so much easier to believe that. Because if that's not true, look at that suffering just cascading down. Your whole life gets turned upside down, and then you're standing on your own 2 feet. But it feels like you're standing on your hands. This is what social inversion is all about. We have been told, now I'm using outdated analogies. In Orwell's time, that was more the case. Now it's moral principles. If you don't like exterminationist, culturally inversionist things, you are a bad person. And everybody in the whole wide world, including Sesame Street, believes this thing that is a anthropological trope that leads to exterminationist outcomes. And bad people believe in this thing, which is pretty practical, has historical foundations, and shouldn't be questioned on any fundamental level. But these innovative, modern thinkers have started to do that because they say it's the right way to go, and it's their way or the highway, friend. So get on board, otherwise, watch out. We got a parification and ostracizing program for you. That's oftentimes what I refer to as chicken coopism, or one version of it on a moral level, socially. Dealing with other people who have been trained to see things the wrong way, wrong view. But of course, people can just take an oppositional approach to wrong view and say, well, okay, now they have the wrong view, so then I have the right view. So you can swing from that to another wrong view. The view of the egoic, always being right, everyone else is wrong view. Can slip that way. So that would be equally as unskillful. So you see how how difficult view can be. Which is when we come back to two concepts. One is no view. No view at all. You've been born. The sun came up this morning. You're reborn. This day has no connection to yesterday or tomorrow. It's individual. It's today. That's it. Nothing else. It has no meaning. And yet it's meaningful when you have no view. And that's the mystery of nothingness, isn't it? So no view is pretty good if you can attain it, if it's real. You are not attached, you're not hindered. That's pretty good. But then we come to the concept of right view. Well, one right view would be to see no view as something good. The Patujana doesn't see it that way. Oh, you need to have an opinion on this. This is very important, you see? That's sort of common and normal way of thinking, but that would not be right view, is it? That's normal view. And normal views lead to normal results, which are not supernormal. Are they? And then there's just the habit of getting into the habit of producing views. Like, okay, this is a day, new things happening, I need new views. Well, no, you don't. You can abstain from view making. But that concept of right view is very tricky because, again, conceit could build up around it. For example, practicing only 3 hours a day is not enough. Could be a view that you develop at some point. But it might be enough for different people if they can get the results that are good enough for them. And at one point, perhaps it was good enough. Perhaps switching to a 24/7 kind of program would be better, wouldn't it? But then you can get caught up in doubt as well. So right view, it sounds very good, but there are very few things that are right view. It's just via conceit we often think we are holding the right view when in fact we might not be, especially if it's causing some kind of agitation. And I think just like seeing anger is easier than seeing doubt, we can see our attachments to people more than we can to places, but and also things. See, people and things, we can see there's attachments more, but what we don't see are places. Places are subtly, we grow subtle attachments to places. Have you ever heard people say, oh, I'm from city so and so, born and raised, and they're very proud of that? That's attachment to place. But do they own that place, or does that place own them? Does it own a piece of their mind? Because I'm pretty sure that place has nothing to do with them, really. It's just a aggregation of building materials and changing forms and conditions, including people. The people in a city aren't the same people. Like every 5 years, you could ask how many people are still there. It's probably got like a turnover rate, depending on the city, of like at least 20%. So in 10 years, it's a completely different city in some cases. And in many cases, it does not, especially today, does not improve. In a lot of cases, it gets worse because of the political component, the political sabotage component of hybrid war that we experience in this time. Leads to tremendous amounts of mismanagement and misguided policies, and then you're talking about subnormal results over time. But if you are attached to a collection of building materials in a specific location, as you're encouraged to do by normal people, then you might find that change, sort of the change like Uruk, the city Uruk underwent, U-R-U-K. You might find that to be discomforting, to say the least. You might even find it to be genocidal or annihilationist. That fancy car, again, is another good example. Oh, that's my car. That's my fancy car. Well, you get in an accident. How does it feel to have had a fancy car that has been destroyed or stolen or keyed, or the window smashed out, or in a fender bender, or? How much is that fancy car worth to you? Not just in monetary terms, but in psychological terms. How attached are you? Can you just give it away? Why can't you? It's a nice car. Give it to someone who could make better use of it. And yet then if you hear a week later that it was hit by an RPG and there's nothing left, you should not feel any attachment towards it. And yet how many people can say that they have reached a level of skill, reached a level of detachment that would be true? Or would there be some small pang of disappointment? Would they come back to that disappointment again and again and again, even though they told themselves that they had the skills of detachment? But in fact, they find themselves thinking about it despite that and getting worked up about it on some level, or having it change their perspective on life in some kind of negative, depressive, or perhaps angry way, or combination of all of those things. And the attachment act as the conduit into the chitta, as they say. The heart, the soul, the mind leaks in with that dirty pipe of attachment. Or like a gas, starts spreading. First on the unconscious levels, and then it reaches a point, tipping point, or your awareness catches it. You see, oh, what's this here? How strange. I thought I had detached myself from that person, place, or thing. See, place, we can't keep 3 balls. Many people can't juggle 3 balls at once. And they can't see those 3 things at once. But often it is place. Once you get past the people and things, finally you return to place. For example, your entire country being assaulted and subverted and undermined is something that is bothering you on some level, which is also very normal. But it's also common and vulgar, and it can also be overdone. Because how many people are beating themselves up about building materials in your vicinity? Or what did they think your country to be versus how you see it? And that's why getting involved in these kinds of, let's say, social identifications are fraught with different incongruencies. And then you have to think to yourself, well, how much of it would be delusional and how much of it is not? How much is it a self-fabricated kind of view? And how much of it is real? Where is the border in the jungle between Thailand and Cambodia? Who decided to put it there and not over there? And then is there an immediate cultural shift, or is it a gray zone? And then which way is their culture going and which way is the other culture going? And you see how things get pretty fuzzy. What is the pure expression of this culture versus that culture? What if you updated your views to thinking of people like living in some kind of tent encampment without regulatory authorities that have codified certain ways of behavior? Could you live anyway? And how would you live? What would you do? What wouldn't you do? Would you be freer to practice or less free? Would you have more demands or less demands? Do you have a desire to signal socially that you're a valuable person? And how rational is that? And how much do you have to suffer to attain some type of basic level of what you would consider basic achievement to satisfy your conceit, so that you can stop blaming yourself or others as far as those outer things are concerned that are supposed to be some form of social validation. And whether or not it is wise to think that way, could that be wrong view? And then if it is wrong view, what would be right view or no view? Well, no view, that's a good one. But can you change your view now once you see it? Can you let a couple of things go now? Can you continue to do that if you see things that way and not the other way? That it really doesn't matter how many things you've been able to accumulate and what other people think about that, especially greedy people, versus not having those things and also not having any kinds of aggravation associated with those things. Oh, I thought having a gold bar with me would make me feel wealthy, but now I'm worried every time and everywhere I go that someone will steal it because they can, because it's external, because it's accessible, and because people are insanely possessed by things regarding money. Because they have been taught that, yes, if you have money, then you're good. If you don't have money, you're bad. Or if you have money, you're worth something. If you don't have money, you're worthless. They are trained like this. They think that they have discovered a universal truth and a principle that nobody, no sophist anywhere on the world could ever talk them out of. Lots of people like that. It's unbelievable. I didn't realize how super normal I was that I did not have that belief, not perhaps on some subtle level, but not overt. And yet there are an immense amount of fantastically vulgar people that are lock, stock, and barrel convinced that money makes them and other people valuable. And the lack of money would make them and other people worthless. And a lot of these people, because that's not only the dunce level wrong view that they have, often lose all their money. But they don't lose that view. And these are people that are punishing and blaming themselves, even though there's nobody around doing that to them other than extremely vulgar people just like they are. But these are the people, you can see them sometimes in parks ripping their hair out, half naked, not taking showers, high on drugs, type of hell realm, 3 realm occupants in this dimension. That's where wrong view can get you. Oh, I don't have that, but to a certain degree you might. How do you know if you have it or not? Well, Dana and non-attachment are really the good indicators of that. And those are things you can prove to yourself. It's nothing. It means nothing proving it to others. Although these conceited backflip kind of pudujanas, they like to make a show of dana, but essentially they're just trying to convey to others that they have so much money that they can give it away, which is a way of presenting themselves in the same hierarchy of value in an auspicious way. And so they don't really come out of that view that way, do they? That's not. I mean, in a way it is dana, and that will have automatic benefits for them, but it's not the true kind. After listening to a couple of my routines, some people might not understand it, but the comedic genre gives one a lot of free room to explore ideas in all different types of ways, especially ways that someone might not think is proper. Because why do you think it's proper to say it this way and not that way? If the person saying it has no self and is looking for a humorous kind of angle, because that's one of the best things that we can attain on this plane of existence. But it is not easy. But comedians, at least the ones that have gone through the three realms and still have their sense of humor, they're exceptional in a lot of different ways. And that spinning hay into gold, don't ever look down on that ability or misinterpret what kind of skill that is, because anybody could come out and say something and take it the wrong way. Anyone can get offended, anyone can get angry, anyone can get envious, anyone can engage in any of the kilesas or mind poisons or defilements or hindrances. Anyone can do that, but not anyone or everyone can be funny, by golly, and not all the time. Now the danger for the comedian is that he sets the bar too high, that he does have to be funny all the time, or everything has to be funny all the time, or he has to be laughing all the time. But that would be impossible, wouldn't it? That would be to create a delusional expectation. That would be to limit comedy to the laughs, to the punchline, and not to the build-up to that, which is essential for real comedy. It has to have deep, 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 dark roots to reach those higher branches, those golden boughs with those golden fruits. And to do it in ever more innovative and, dare I say, ridiculous and absurd ways. Thank you very much. Well, someone wrote in and said, comedy is sort of limiting in a way, isn't it? And I thought to myself, well, maybe it is. It depends on how far you're going to go with the genre. I was thinking the other day I could just turn some of these here old heartbreaks into some melodies and then sell an album. So that I can find another way to convey these here feelings that aren't just funny, but they're so deep, so profound, so meaningful, so significant, so compelling, so enthralling, so capturing, so prescient, so ever contemporary. But then I'd have to sit down and work on some music and work on a different kind of practice. And that might alienate my audience that are looking for the hard solution in these here dark days above and below. But why should someone limit themselves if they know how to play those songs? Someone wrote in and said, could you say a few words about weird? W-Y-R-D, thanks. Yeah, unfortunately, people think of weird like, oh, wow, that was weird. Well, where that comes from is our superstitious ancestors that saw such weird occurrences as something prophetic, some kind of intersection of the godly or archetypal realm and real life. So you should see it in that type of significance. And then remember, English is a Germanic language. So where did it come from? Well, werden. So that's like will be, becoming, and being. Right? Werden sein. So how do things come into being? Do they have a past, present, and future? So it's a lot more complex and nuanced. A weird occurrence is something that someone who is sensitive in these matters should give great consideration to. And the meaning might not be all that accessible. It might take time. And it might just be an indication of other indications that one needs to bring into some kind of holistic synchronicity for it to be truly as meaningful as it may have been meant to be. A chance weird occurrence. That's so chance and weird that it's really impossible not to have been a message that one would be foolish to misinterpret. Coming back to a fun part of human settlements, yeah, it's a campground, a glorified campground wherever you are. 5,000 people, glorified campground. 10,000, same thing. 100,000, 1 million, that's it. And if you have a hardened tent, don't be surprised if it blows over and goes away. Don't get attached to changing forms and conditions. That's what the Buddha said. I didn't say that. Well, I repeated it. See, dummies, when you're not an egotist, it's really not about keeping things to yourself. It's about dana. And then there is no egoic conflict between you and me. We're the same person. We're the same life form. We're human beings. Have compassion for yourself. That's the message I have for you. you don't have enough. You think you do. You don't. You're not being generous with yourself. Your self-caring program stinks. You're not even taking time for practice. Like, you can't find 5 minutes in a day. I'm talking about these types of paduginas. I want the first one to start right now and say, look, I'm going to sprinkle 5 minutes throughout my day for practice, not for distraction. Concentrated practice to get rid of the crap that you have because you're suffering, but you're not admitting that because yourself will not admit that, because that's the shadoic problem, which is very hard for people with self to get over. But with people with no self, they can get over it. And then they renew themselves. They forgive themselves. They rejuvenate themselves, and they redeem themselves. I have an army of people like that. Just because they listen to this, they are that. And they absolutely change their lives, their destiny, their trajectory, and everything else from something that was doomed to failure to unimaginable beauty, freedom, liberation, purification, health, and a kind of sanity that subnormal people would not admit exists, but even normal people are enthralled with, because the benefits of looking at the world in a good way with right effort, right view. That is the jewel. That is the wish-granting jewel of the mind. And it is attainable. You just have to put in the effort. You are responsible, nobody else. Your grandparents, forget about it. Think how blessed your grandparents are that they gave you this gift to hear these words, to change your life forever and the lives of others to come in a future that hasn't yet been born, but you will make the fantastically, unimaginably beautiful version of it. So stylish, so liberated, so free, so hygienic, so simple, so down to earth, so achievable, so real. That's what you get with this practice. Some say some of you value jade. Yeah, I'm talking about jade. It's a gemstone. You should look into it. It has so many different facets. You turn it this way, the color changes. It's a magical kind of substance. And yet, I am talking about the jade within, that you can materialize, so that your life is that way, so that you do not accumulate bad karma, and the entire world improves automatically because of that, even if it means self-sacrifice. And oftentimes it does require that, but no self helps you to get there. And then you're there and you have interior jade. So maybe it's the Jade Vehicle, not the Diamond Vehicle, but it can be both, depending on your preference in any given mind moment. That's the optionality I'm offering you for free. But it's not me. It's the Buddha that gave you that. The Buddha within. If that didn't hit you, I hope it did. And it knocked all of that nonsense out of you. And now you're here, not as a ghost, but as the highest form of superhuman that any human can access if they practice the right way with right effort and right view. And to constantly adapt and let go of things that, according to the 5 precepts, will be generated, and so one abides by them to not do that in a self-preserving but no self regenerative way that unleashes all of the positive forces of this idea into all corners of the world for anyone noble enough to acknowledge and abide by them. Now, some of the old surfer dudes write in and I'm like, look, you were talking about this last season, and this is a new season, and you still haven't changed. And I told them, look, man, or dude, I try to bring it down to the lowest level to connect with people that are in the lowest levels, to just give them a few perspectives. Like, they usually have no options. I come in, I got 21. Not all of them are good, but I break it down in such a real way that it's unforgettable. In the Bodhidharma tradition. So hard hitting, every area, low and high. But it's directed against no one person that need not see them as the enemy, as an other than a pure vision for the universe that is free. 100,000% liberated from kilesas. What a vision that is of this universe that praises God and is not a heretic, and yet wants all of the good things for all of the good people that do exist on this plane of existence, that you make this transformation for yourself. Because you have benefited so many others without realizing it. That goes so far beyond dana in monetary terms that you deserve to be chronicled in this time as the best of the best, Kalyamita, Kalyanamita, that the universe has ever known. Now, as far as Buddhas go, I want to give them all artistic license that Kinas or any other inspiration could give them to get out of hell or the 3 realms. And if it takes comedy to get there, if you have to debase the self in a legendarily talented celestial way, such as humor, what style you have, what good taste, how well you lived, how much you laughed, at all of those things that other normal, common, vulgar people take so seriously that it destroys their lives. But you let that go. My God, how can you not be elevated with a mindset like that, a reality like that? You let that go. Although everyone in the world would have thought it was way too important, way too painful, for you, you forgot about a long time ago. 24 hours, that's how quick you work. That's why it's the Jade Vehicle and the Diamond Vehicle. It's that easy if you make it like that. But that only requires practice, and practice is such an elusive thing. But archery, it works in archery, so do it in this matter of the spirit and you will be accurate, and your kilesas will be 0. But Buddhists have amazing appreciation for normal people. They are so valuable. And therefore there is gratitude, not contempt. Vaina. That's the word I was looking for the other day, and it came back to me once all kilesas were cleared from my mind. It was unhindered, and it accessed the information in a dispassionate way. And when I mean dispassionate, put some electrodes on the thing. There's no current. It's zero. That's nothing, isn't it? We can tweak nothing on bicycles down to zero tolerances and acceptable limits, can we not? The thing works. It's excellent. It's science. It's advancement. It's true insight. Your chain has a 0.0000 tolerance. It cannot work any other way. This is this dimension, and yet look how well it works. It's very stable. It can go through a multitude of challenges, a multitude of unexpected changing forms and conditions. And that chain, it's still working today. Sometimes 20 years later, look at how much work it performed. You see that chain? That's this Jade practice regarding emotional matters or matters of the mind. We have the good principles, we have the precepts, and then it's about implementation. And no matter what life throws at you, you do not chain. How much, any people working in factories, how much does that chain have to, look how well that chain has been designed. But that was not the first chain. That is a modern chain. That is a chain that has gone through scientific, rigorous conditions of an unexpected nature, and then the engineers modified the design. This is the adaptable principle of a Buddha. But normal people, they are so valuable. Your suffering means something. It does. It counts. It's real. Accept it. It's a precondition of existence in this realm. You were born here. Those are the preconditions. I hate to tell you, it's neutral. God has nothing against you. God wants you to live in a good way. God is good. That's it. Keep it simple. Repeat that mantra to yourself over and over again, and start internally. And if the outside world accepts it or not, it doesn't matter. If it finds disdain, it doesn't matter. It's an internal practice with internal validation that are congruent with philosophical principles that lead to equanimity, at least. And you can also inject joy and meaning into that as well, because I do believe that it is somewhat more motivational, but that equanimity is really enough. But to get that, it's better to overshoot, and that's why I've incorporated these enthusiastic principles into the practice. And they should be used to their limits to get people through the most difficult of circumstances. Politics, economics, whatever it might be. And remain supernormal human beings throughout all of their trials and tribulations, which Vaina has taught me in this time. It has taken everything from me. So do not be surprised that Buddhas come from the warrior class. The Buddha himself was from that. Because this dimension is a real battle. It's an MMA of the mind. But never forget the Kalyanamitta amongst us, the Bodhisattvas, that are fighting the good fight every day, despite whatever is thrown at them. Because that is what this dimension is about. I wish all living creatures well. No wave crashing to the shore is trivial. It takes tectonic forces for such a wave to be created and for it to crash on another tectonic force, the earth, where you should feel your most groundedness when you see the sign of the cross. Earth is where you are, and here you are grounded, and any electrical charge, even if it is a lightning bolt, can be so redirected that it does not harm you in the least, because you conduct it to the nether realms. You do not get burnt by it as an insulator, as some kind of hard case, some kind of fuse that burns through, instead of conducting this energy to places that it belongs, that has nothing to do with you or the soul. Which is to say, it has nothing to do with you. It's just you thought it did. That's the delusionality. That's one of the three realms. If you are not in that realm, then there's only two left. And then if you're not in those realms, then you've succeeded to not be in the hell realms of this dimension. So I want to say congratulations to those expert practitioners that are on the level. They have arrived. Like a big bus, you see them, there's buses going everywhere. They have arrived at Parinibbana, Nibbana, in the werden sign kind of co-connection that makes things so palatable, to put it mildly, if you can get there and stay there. Because it's okay to be there, because there's no reason not to be there that wouldn't be in some form or another insidious or perhaps of bad karma. Because this is what it is to be the highest expression of man as a kind of human being at the intersection Gibo of a past, present, future kind of a mysterious scenario. And to take it even to further levels, but it doesn't really matter, because if you overshoot and get to that basic level of equanimity, you have arrived. You will want to go somewhere else, but you have arrived. This is the best this dimension can offer. So do appreciate that. Where is your gratitude? Where is your Dana? Brothers and sisters, can you believe what they said about me in my time? They made the accusation that I hated women when I loved them the most. I, an archaeologist of the mind that dug out Artemis from the dirt to understand more about why the archetype of women is so magnificent. How I could have deluded myself in a Mara kind of way. And yet, that goal is attainable for women, and it's the best thing they can do in this dimension. And no one should hinder them on that path. And if you are female, you should not hinder yourself on that path. No self will get you there. The archetype, Artemis. I did not say this. This is what I found in a stone that took me years to dig out and finally to interpret. To tell you, that is all you need to do. You have arrived if you are there. And she is good, as is this dimension, as is God, and all of his sons, and the Holy Spirit, and the rest of it. How could you have forgotten that? You got talked out of that? Talk yourself into that. My God, the world is so oversaturated with goodness and joy if you would only receive it. But if you have some type of mental construct that would insulate or keep you from that, you need to tear that down yourself. That's your job right now. It's so obvious, and yet you are so weak. But should you persevere, you will get there. That's this miraculous message that has electrified people around the world to take agency and get themselves there by any little increment that they can, to be there, to be that, to change their past, present, and future lives. Okay, to differentiate El-Haz from El-Waz, think of El-Waz as a horse that's already ridden away, whereas El-Haz is the horns of the elk that you have at your immediate kind of prescient, weird sign kind of dimension that you have optionality on. If you follow the 5 precepts, you will already be positively biased towards the heavenly realms. And this is where we come to the 3 by 5, which is 15. But see those 3s in 5 dimensions, geometrically. This is much better than the 4-leaf clover. This is the 3-leaf clover. Now you see it. "19, that horse. El-Haz. See, you got it. You have it. That's 19. That gets you to 20. That's Manas. Loose parts. Cut out the number of your loose parts. Tie them down. Get them redesigned so that they can take care of that automatic function, so that you have no unnecessary suffering. Now, some of you will have karmic suffering. You have to make amends with that. Just see it beyond this life. This is what fate has made inevitable for you, but it's still not unfortunate. It's a duty. But see it with equanimity. This is your fate. These are the cards you were dealt. So you're going to play that hand to the best of your ability until your last breath and beyond. Because this is just one bardo of infinite numbers. But you get past this one and you never come back here. With all of those principles, precepts, right view that you continuously redefine to be that, not some kind of statement of inevitability or final destination. No, it's not. It's always becoming. It's in time, it's in the past, it's in the future. What is your synthesis right now? Look at the moon. Is it waxing or waning? You didn't even know? You're ignorant about that? What else are you ignorant about? Maybe how your mind works? You can be subnormal. That's not a prize. You don't get a prize for that. You get condemnation for that and bad karma for that. Be wise about these things. Getting back to the most basic points again and again and again. Make sure your footwear is okay. That it fits well, is comfortable, and can take care of a diverse amount of threats. If it's crushing your toes, that you have that steel toe protection. If you're on the job, that would be neglecting self-care not to take that principle into account. But if you need to get over a rock face, maybe you have to change your footwear. It's just like that. Just be dispassionate like that. Be expert and professional like that. Know self like that. This person requires this. You deliver a service in a time of need. There's no telling what good karma that would be. It could be winning the lottery, and some people have. Their whole families have. Just because they were there at the right place at the right time, with the right morality, the right understanding of this universe. And it changed everything for their entire family, just like that. Just like winning the lottery, but much better because it's in spiritual terms. They did the right thing. They followed the middle path. How can they not say Alu, Alu, Alu every chance they get?